The vast expanse of space was quiet, as it had always been. Stars twinkled in the distance, their light traveling for years before reaching the sensors of the Galactic Peacekeeping Organization's main space station. It was just another day for the alien crew members who manned the station, their tentacles and appendages working tirelessly over holographic screens and control panels. Commander Zix, a tall, blue-skinned being with 4 arms and large compound eyes, stood at the center of the control room. His species was known for their calm demeanor, but even he couldn't hide the slight twitch in his upper left hand as he surveyed the room. Something felt off today, though he couldn't quite put his finger on it. Suddenly, a loud beep echoed through the room, breaking the usual hum of machinery. All eyes turned to a small green alien named Gloop, whose gelatinous body was now flashing with bright patterns of alarm. "Commander!" Gloop's voice bubbled with excitement and concern. "We're picking up a distress signal." Zix moved swiftly to Gloop's station, his long strides covering the distance in seconds. "Show me," he commanded, his voice a low rumble. The holographic display in front of them expanded, showing a map of the galaxy. A pulsing red dot appeared in a sector that made Zix's compound eyes widen with surprise. "That can't be right," he muttered. "That sector is uncharted. We've never received any signals from there before." The rest of the crew gathered around, their diverse forms a testament to the variety of life in the galaxy. There were tall, willowy beings with skin like bark, short, stocky creatures with metallic exoskeletons, and even a few gaseous entities contained in special suits. "Can we establish communication?" Zix asked, his 4 hands moving in perfect coordination as he adjusted the controls. A serpentine alien named Sis slithered forward, her forked tongue flicking out as she spoke. "We're trying, Commander, but the signal is strange. It doesn't match any known language patterns in our database." For hours, the best minds on the station worked tirelessly to decipher the signal. They ran it through every translation algorithm they had, compared it to every known form of communication in the galaxy, and even tried to break it down into its most basic components. But nothing worked. As the standard galactic day cycle came to an end, frustration levels were high. Zix stood at the main viewing window, staring out at the stars, his mind racing. They had to find a way to understand this signal. If it was indeed a cry for help, lives could be at stake. It was then that Gloop, who had been unusually quiet for the past few hours, spoke up. "Commander, I have an idea. It's unconventional, but it might work." Zix turned, his interest piqued. "Go on, Gloop. At this point, I'm open to anything." Gloop's body rippled with nervous energy as he explained. "Well, sir, I've been thinking about the diversity of our own crew. We have beings from all over the galaxy, each with their own unique ways of communicating. But there's one planet we've always found fascinating because of its linguistic diversity. Earth," Zix said, realization dawning in his compound eyes. "Exactly," Gloop exclaimed, his gelatinous form jiggling with excitement. "Humans have thousands of languages on just one planet. They've developed countless ways of communicating over their relatively short history. If anyone can help us decipher this signal, it might be them." The room fell silent as everyone considered this idea. It was true that Earth had been a subject of interest for many in the galactic community. The planet had only recently become aware of extraterrestrial life, and while they weren't yet full members of the Galactic Alliance, they had shown remarkable adaptability and ingenuity in their first contacts. Zix pondered for a moment, his 4 arms crossed in contemplation. It was a risk, involving such a young species in a potentially dangerous mission, but the more he thought about it, the more sense it made. "All right," he finally said, his voice filled with determination. "Let's do it. Sis, prepare a communication to Earth's United Nations. Gloop, gather all the data we have on this signal. The rest of you, start preparing our fastest ship. If we're going to invite humans on this mission, we need to be ready to move quickly." As the crew burst into action, Zix couldn't help but feel a mix of excitement and apprehension. This could be the beginning of a new era for Earth and its place in the galactic community. But it could also be the start of something far more dangerous than any of them realized. In the following days, Earth received the message from the Galactic Peacekeeping Organization. The news spread like wildfire across the planet. Humans, with their insatiable curiosity and adventurous spirit, were thrilled at the prospect of joining an intergalactic rescue mission. Governments around the world scrambled to assemble teams of their best linguists, cryptographers, and communication experts. The selection process was intense, with candidates from every corner of the globe vying for a chance to represent humanity in this unprecedented endeavor. As the chosen team prepared for their journey into the unknown, the rest of humanity watched with bated breath. This was more than just a rescue mission. It was humanity's chance to prove itself on the galactic stage. Little did they know that their unique abilities, born from the rich tapestry of human culture and history, would soon be put to the ultimate test. The fate of an entire alien fleet would rest in their hands, and the decisions they made would echo across the stars for generations to come. As the Earth team boarded the alien ship that would take them to the space station, they carried with them not just the hopes of humanity, but the key to unlocking a mystery that had stumped the greatest minds in the galaxy. The Adventure Wall, the sleek alien vessel, glided through the star-speckled void, its hull shimmering with an otherworldly iridescence. Inside, the human team from Earth sat in awe, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of holographic displays. Dr. Sarah Chen, the lead linguist, pressed her hand against the cool surface of a nearby window, her eyes wide with wonder. "I still can't believe we're here," she whispered, her breath fogging the glass. Next to her, Captain Jack Harper, a seasoned space pilot with a mop of unruly gray hair, chuckled. "Better believe it, Doc. We're about to make history." The team of 20 humans had been carefully selected from across the globe. Linguists, engineers, diplomats, and scientists, each chosen for their unique skills and adaptability. They had trained for months, learning to operate alien technology and studying the basics of intergalactic diplomacy, but nothing could have truly prepared them for this moment. A soft chime echoed through the ship's interior, and a holographic image of Commander Zix appeared before them. His forearms moved in fluid gestures as he spoke, his words translated by the ship's advanced systems. "Honored Earth Team," Zix's deep voice resonated. "We are approaching the coordinates of the distress signal. Prepare yourselves for what we may encounter." The excitement in the cabin was palpable as the humans gathered their equipment. Dr. Chen clutched her tablet, loaded with Earth's vast linguistic databases. Engineer Raj Patel double-checked his toolkit, filled with both Earth-made tools and alien devices he was still learning to use. As the ship decelerated, the view outside the windows shifted. What they saw made them gasp collectively. Before them stretched a vast armada of alien ships, thousands strong, their designs as varied as they were beautiful. Some were sleek and needle-like, others resembled giant metallic jellyfish, but all of them hung motionless in space, dark and silent. "By all that's holy," breathed Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the team's xenobiologist. "It's an entire civilization out here." Commander Zix's voice came through again, tinged with concern. "We're not detecting any power signatures from the fleet." "Something is very wrong." Captain Harper leaned forward, his brow furrowed. "Can we dock with one of the larger ships? Maybe we can find some answers inside." After a tense few minutes of maneuvering, their ship latched onto what appeared to be a massive command vessel at the center of the fleet. The docking procedure was smooth, but as the airlock cycled, an eerie silence enveloped them. The human team, led by Captain Harper and Dr. Chen, stepped cautiously into the alien ship. Their flashlights cut through the darkness, revealing corridors that seemed to be designed for beings of all shapes and sizes. "This ship," Dr. Rodriguez marveled, "it's like a mobile United Nations for aliens." As they ventured deeper into the ship, they began to encounter the inhabitants. Aliens of all descriptions lay slumped in corridors or hunched over control panels. Dr. Rodriguez rushed to the nearest one, a tall, willowy being with bark-like skin. "They're alive!" she exclaimed, her medical scanner beeping. "But they're in some kind of stasis. Life signs are incredibly low." Suddenly, a weak light flickered to life ahead of them. As they approached, they saw a holographic message playing on a loop. The alien in the message was unlike any they had seen before, a swirling, luminescent cloud contained within a transparent shell. Dr. Chen stepped forward, her eyes narrowing in concentration as she listened to the unintelligible sounds. After a few repetitions, she turned to the others, her face pale. I think I'm starting to understand," she said, her voice shaking slightly. "It's not one language. It's many, all layered on top of each other, like they were trying to reach anyone who might hear them." She worked feverishly on her tablet, correlating the sounds with known linguistic patterns. After what seemed like hours but was only minutes, she looked up, her eyes wide. "They're dying," she translated. "Their propulsion systems failed, stranding them here. But that's not the worst part. Their life support systems are tied to the engines somehow. When the engines died, they started to die too. The gravity of the situation hit the team like a physical force. They weren't just here to translate a message or make first contact. They were here to save an entire civilization from extinction." Captain Harper's voice cut through the stunned silence. "All right, people, you heard the doctor. We've got a job to do. Raj, take your engineering team and see what you can find out about their engines. Dr. Rodriguez, focus on their life support systems. We need to know how much time these people have left." As the team scattered to their tasks, Dr. Chen and Captain Harper continued to explore the ship's command center. They found more aliens in stasis, their bodies perfectly preserved but barely alive. "Look at this technology," Harper marveled, running his hand over a control panel that seemed to respond to his touch. "It's so advanced, but what?" Chen asked, looking up from her tablet where she was still decoding messages. "But it's like it's not made for them," Harper finished, his brow furrowed in concentration. "These controls, they seem more suited to our physiology than theirs." Before Dr. Chen could respond, a crackling sound filled the air. A new hologram sputtered to life in front of them, showing a being that looked surprisingly humanoid. Its skin was a deep purple, and its eyes were large and silvery, but its basic form was shockingly familiar. The being spoke, its voice weak but clear, and to their astonishment, they understood every word. "If you are seeing this," the alien said, "then our worst fears have come to pass. Our fleet, our people, our very civilization stands on the brink of extinction. We have traveled so far for so long, searching for those who could help us. We are the predecessors, and you. You must be the ones we have waited for." The hologram flickered and died, leaving Captain Harper and Dr. Chen staring at each other in shock. The implications were staggering. These aliens, these predecessors, had been searching for humanity. But why? And how could humans, so new to the galactic stage, possibly save a civilization so advanced? As the rest of the team reported their findings, failing engines, dwindling life support, and technology that seemed to defy their understanding, one thing became clear. The fate of this entire alien fleet now rested in human hands. Their mission had just become far more complex and far more crucial than any of them could have imagined. With determination in their eyes, the Earth team set to work. They had a civilization to save, and they would not fail. The greatest challenge humanity had ever faced had begun, and the clock was ticking. The command center of the alien flagship buzzed with activity. Holographic displays flickered with strange symbols, casting an eerie blue glow over the faces of the human team. Engineer Raj Patel stood in the center of it all, his dark eyes darting from one screen to another, his mind racing. "It doesn't make sense," he muttered, running a hand through his disheveled hair. "The technology is incredibly advanced, but it's like trying to read a book written in 20 different languages at once." Dr. Sarah Chen looked up from her tablet, her brow furrowed in concentration. "Maybe that's exactly what it is, Raj. Remember the message? These predecessors were looking for us. What if the system is designed to respond to human input?" Captain Jack Harper, who had been pacing nearby, stopped in his tracks. "You mean they built all this? For us?" Before anyone could respond, a loud clang echoed through the ship, followed by a series of beeps from a nearby console. Dr. Elena Rodriguez rushed over, her eyes widening as she read the display. "Life support is failing in sections of the ship," she reported, her voice tense. We're losing them, sector by sector. The gravity of the situation hit everyone at once. They weren't just trying to solve a puzzle. They were racing against time to save thousands of lives. Raj took a deep breath, squaring his shoulders. All right, let's think about this logically. We know the ship's systems are somehow tied to human physiology. So let's start with the basics. What makes us unique? The team fell silent, each lost in thought. It was Dr. Chen who spoke first, her eyes lighting up with realization. Our hands, she said, holding up her own. 5 fingers, opposable thumbs. It's a relatively rare configuration in the galaxy, isn't it? Captain Harper nodded slowly. The control panels. They did seem designed for hands like ours. Raj snapped his fingers. That's it! Dr. Rodriguez, remember how you said the aliens' life signs were incredibly low? What if they're not just in stasis, but in some kind of suspended animation? Dr. Rodriguez's eyes widened. And they need a human touch to wake them up? Without waiting for confirmation, Raj strode over to the main control panel. He hesitated for just a moment before placing his hand flat on the smooth surface. The effect was immediate and stunning. The panel lit up beneath his palm, lines of energy spreading out like a spider web. The ship hummed to life around them, systems powering up one by one. It's working! Dr. Chen exclaimed, watching as the holographic displays shifted, the alien symbols morphing into recognizable patterns. The ship is translating itself for us. Raj grinned, his earlier frustration replaced by excitement. Not just translating. Look! He pointed to a schematic that had appeared, showing the ship's layout. It's giving us a full diagnostic. We can see exactly what's wrong and where. Captain Harper leaned in, his eyes narrowing as he studied the display. The propulsion system is completely fried. No wonder they're stranded. But look here, he pointed to a pulsing red section. The life support systems are tied directly into the main power grid. When the engines failed, they started draining the backup power. Dr. Rodriguez frowned. But why design it that way? It seems like a massive flaw. Not a flaw, Raj said slowly, his mind racing. A feature. Think about it. A ship this size carrying so many different species, the power requirements must be enormous. By tying life support directly to the engines, they could sustain themselves almost indefinitely as long as they were moving. Until they couldn't move anymore, Dr. Chen finished, understanding dawning on her face. Captain Harper straightened up, his voice taking on the commanding tone that had made him a natural leader. All right, we know what we're dealing with now. Raj, focus on finding a way to disconnect the life support from the main power grid. Dr. Rodriguez, start waking up some of our alien friends. We're going to need their help. Dr. Chen, keep working on translating their systems. The more we understand, the better our chances. As the team sprang into action, Raj found himself marveling at the complexity of the alien technology. It was like nothing he had ever seen, yet somehow familiar. The ship seemed to anticipate his needs, bringing up schematics and diagnostic tools as he thought of them. Hours passed in a blur of activity. Raj's fingers flew over holographic keyboards, rerouting power systems and bypassing damaged circuits. Dr. Rodriguez moved from stasis pod to stasis pod, carefully reviving aliens of all shapes and sizes. Dr. Chen's voice was a constant in the background, reading out translations and discoveries. It was Dr. Rodriguez who made the next breakthrough. Guys, she called out, excitement clear in her voice. I think I've figured out why they need us specifically. The team gathered around her, curious. She held up her hand, palm out. Our skin, she said. It's not just about the shape of our hands. It's our skin itself. Look. She placed her hand on a nearby panel, and tiny lights beneath the surface began to glow. We're bioelectric, she explained. Our skin produces a small electrical current. It's not much, but for their systems it's like a key turning in a lock. Raj's eyes lit up. Of course, that's why they couldn't operate their own systems. They don't produce the right kind of bioelectric field. Captain Harper nodded thoughtfully. So they built this entire fleet, knowing they'd need another species to help operate it. Talk about planning ahead. As if on cue, one of the newly awakened aliens approached them. It was a tall, willowy being with iridescent skin that seemed to shimmer with each movement. Its large, compound eyes blinked slowly as it took in the sight of the humans. To everyone's surprise, it was the alien who spoke first. its voice a melodious trill that the ship's systems translated for them. "You came," it said simply, gratitude evident in its tone. "We have waited so long." Dr. Chen stepped forward, her voice gentle. "We're here to help. Can you tell us more about your people? About why you needed us?" The alien's eyes seemed to sparkle with an inner light. "We are the Guardians," it said, tasked with protecting the younger races of the galaxy. But our time is ending. We searched the stars for a species worthy of taking our place. A species with the creativity, the adaptability, and the compassion needed to guide others. We found you." The weight of the alien's words settled over the human team. They had come to save a stranded fleet, only to find themselves chosen for a role of galactic importance. As the implications of this revelation sunk in, alarms began to blare throughout the ship. Captain Harper rushed to a nearby console, his face paling as he read the display. "We've got a bigger problem," he announced grimly. "That star over there? It's about to go supernova. We've got less than 48 hours to get this fleet moving, or we're all going to be stardust." The human team exchanged determined looks. They had come this far, defied the odds, and unlocked the secrets of an ancient alien civilization. Now, with the clock ticking and the fate of thousands in their hands, it was time to prove once and for all why humanity had been chosen for this monumental task. Raj cracked his knuckles, a fierce grin spreading across his face. "Well then," he said, "let's show these Guardians what humans can really do." The alien flagship's command center was a hive of frantic activity. Holographic displays flickered with urgent red warnings, casting an ominous glow over the faces of the human team and their newly awakened alien allies. Captain Jack Harper stood at the center of it all, his weathered face set in grim determination. "All right, people," he barked, his voice cutting through the chaos. "We've got less than 48 hours before that star goes supernova. Our job is to get as much of this fleet operational and out of here as possible. Failure is not an option." Dr. Sarah Chen, her eyes bloodshot from hours of non-stop work, looked up from her tablet. "Captain, I've finished translating the fleet's manifest. We're looking at over 10,000 ships, with millions of beings in stasis." A collective gasp went through the room. The scale of their task was staggering. Raj Patel, the engineer, wiped sweat from his brow. "We can't possibly repair all of them in time. We need to prioritize." The willowy alien guardian they had awakened earlier stepped forward, its shimmering skin reflecting the red warning lights. "Our largest ships can carry many smaller vessels within them," it said, its melodious voice tinged with urgency. "If we focus on repairing these, we can evacuate more efficiently." Captain Harper nodded. "Good thinking. Raj, you and your team focus on the biggest ships. Dr. Rodriguez, keep waking up key personnel from each species. We'll need all the help we can get." As the team dispersed to their tasks, Dr. Chen couldn't shake a nagging feeling. Something about the situation didn't add up. She pulled up the star's data on her tablet, her eyes widening as she analyzed the information. "Captain," she called out, her voice tight with concern. "This star, its deterioration isn't natural. The rate of collapse is too fast, too uniform. I think someone might be causing this deliberately." The command center fell silent, the implications of her words sinking in. Captain Harper's jaw clenched. "You're saying we're not just fighting against time, but against sabotage?" Before Dr. Chen could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. Raj's voice came through the comm system, panic evident in his tone. "We've got a problem! Someone or something is interfering with our repairs. Systems we've fixed are shutting down again." Captain Harper's eyes narrowed. "Looks like we've got a mole in our midst. Dr. Chen, Dr. Rodriguez, I need you to work with the Guardians. Find out if there's any species among them with a reason to want this fleet destroyed. Raj, keep working on those repairs. I'll organize search parties to find our saboteur." As the human team and their alien allies scrambled to address this new threat, the star loomed in the viewport, its angry red surface churning with increasing violence. The clock was ticking, and now they were fighting an enemy on two fronts, time and treachery. Hours passed in a blur of activity. Raj and his engineering team worked tirelessly, their hands flying over alien controls, rerouting power and patching systems. Every time they made progress, another system would mysteriously fail, forcing them to start over. Dr. Rodriguez moved from ship to ship, awakening aliens from stasis and quickly briefing them on the dire situation. The variety of species was astounding, crystalline beings that shimmered like living gemstones, gaseous entities contained in intricate suits, and creatures that seemed to shift and change shape as they moved. Meanwhile, Dr. Chen and the Guardian pored over ancient records, searching for any clue about who might want to sabotage the fleet. The more they learned about the Guardian's history, the more complex the picture became. "Your people have been protecting the galaxy for millions of years," Dr. Chen mused, looking up at the willowy alien. "Surely you must have made some enemies along the way." The Guardian's large eyes blinked slowly. "We have faced many challenges, yes, but to destroy an entire fleet, to risk millions of innocent lives, it is unthinkable." Just then, Captain Harper's voice crackled over the comm. "We've got something. Security footage shows a shadowy figure sabotaging the engine room on Deck 7. It's headed towards the central power core." Dr. Chen's mind raced. The central power core. If that's damaged, we'll lose the whole fleet. We have to stop them. Without hesitation, she and the Guardian raced towards the power core, joined by Captain Harper and a security team along the way. As they approached the massive chamber housing the core, they could hear the sound of energy discharges and alien machinery groaning in protest. They burst into the room to find a scene of chaos. A dark, smoky entity was wrapped around the glowing power core, tendrils of darkness seeping into the pulsing energy. "Stop!" Captain Harper shouted, raising a weapon. "Step away from the core." The shadowy being turned, revealing glowing red eyes in a face of swirling darkness. When it spoke, its voice was like grinding stone. "You do not understand. The Guardians must not be allowed to continue. Their meddling in galactic affairs has caused more harm than good. This fleet must be destroyed to restore balance." Dr. Chen stepped forward, her hands raised in a placating gesture. "We understand you have grievances, but this isn't the way. Millions of innocent beings will die if you do this. Please, let's talk about this." The shadow being hesitated, its form rippling with uncertainty. It was in this moment of distraction that Raj's voice came through the comm system. "Captain, we've done it! We've managed to get the main engines online. We can move the fleet." The news seemed to break the spell. The shadow being roared in frustration, its form expanding rapidly. Captain Harper shouted a warning, but Dr. Chen was already moving. She lunged forward, her hand outstretched towards the power core. As her palm made contact with the alien technology, a surge of energy coursed through her. The ship's systems, recognizing her human bioelectric field, surged to life. The core pulsed with blinding light, driving back the darkness, the shadow being writhed and twisted, its form dissipating under the onslaught of energy. With a final otherworldly shriek, it vanished, leaving behind only a faint wisp of dark smoke. Alarms blared throughout the ship as the star outside began its final collapse. Captain Harper helped Dr. Chen to her feet, his face a mix of concern and pride. "That was some quick thinking, Doctor. Now, let's get this fleet out of here." As they raced back to the command center, they could feel the ship humming with power beneath their feet. Raj's voice came through again, triumphant despite his exhaustion. "Engines are at full power, Captain. We're ready to move." From the viewport, they watched in awe as the massive alien fleet began to move, ship after ship lighting up and following their lead. Just as the star began to emit its final destructive burst of energy, the fleet jumped to faster-than-light speed, leaving behind a spectacular explosion that marked the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. As the humans and their new alien allies caught their breath, marveling at their narrow escape, Captain Harper turned to his team. "Well done, everyone, but something tells me our adventure is just beginning." Dr. Chen nodded, her eyes bright with excitement and curiosity. "The Guardians chose us for a reason. Now it's up to us to prove they made the right choice." As the fleet streaked through the stars, carrying with it the hopes and futures of countless alien species, the human team realized that their greatest challenge and their greatest adventure still lay ahead. The vast expanse of space stretched out before the massive alien fleet as it hurtled through the cosmos at faster-than-light speed. In the command center of the flagship, Captain Jack Harper stood at the viewport, his weathered face reflecting the starlight. The immediate danger had passed, but the weight of responsibility still hung heavy on his shoulders. "Status report," he called out, his voice steady despite the exhaustion evident in his eyes. Raj Patel, the engineer who had worked miracles with the alien technology, looked up from his console. "We're holding steady, Captain. All major systems are functioning at 85% capacity or higher. It's not perfect, but it'll do for now." Dr. Elena Rodriguez chimed in next, her medical expertise having been crucial in reviving and stabilizing the alien passengers. "We've successfully brought 78% of the fleet's population out of stasis. The rest are stable and can be revived once we reach a safe location." Dr. Sarah Chen, whose linguistic skills had been the key to unlocking the secrets of the Guardians, was the last to report. "I've been in communication with representatives from each of the alien species. They're overwhelmed, to say the least. Grateful, but also anxious about what comes next." Captain Harper nodded, understanding the magnitude of the situation. Millions of beings from hundreds of different species, all looking to humanity for guidance and leadership. It was a responsibility unlike any their species had ever faced. As if sensing his thoughts, the willowy guardian they had first encountered glided into the room. Its shimmering form seemed to pulse with an inner light as it addressed the human team. "You have done more than save us from destruction," it said, its melodious voice filled with gratitude. "You have proven why we chose humanity to be our successors. Your ingenuity, your courage, your compassion. These are the qualities that will guide the galaxy into a new era of peace and prosperity." Before anyone could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. Raj's fingers flew over the controls, his face paling as he read the data. "Captain, we've got a problem," he said, his voice tight. "The strain of the escape has caused microfractures in the fleet's dimensional stabilizers. If we don't find a place to land and make repairs soon, we could lose half the fleet to interdimensional drift." Dr. Chen's eyes widened as she quickly scanned the star charts. "There's a system nearby with multiple habitable planets. It's not charted in any of the Guardian databases. She was cut off as the ship suddenly lurched, throwing everyone off balance. Outside the viewport, space itself seemed to ripple and distort. "We're losing dimensional cohesion!" Raj shouted over the blaring alarms. "We need to drop out of FTL now!" Captain Harper's voice rang out clear and commanding. "All hands, brace for emergency deceleration. Raj, give us everything you've got. Dr. Chen, as soon as we're back in normal space, I need coordinates for the nearest landable planet." The next few moments were chaos as the massive fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Ships flickered in and out of view as the dimensional stabilizers struggled to keep them anchored in one reality. As soon as they were back in normal space, Dr. Chen called out coordinates, and Captain Harper ordered the fleet to make for the nearest habitable world. It was a tense journey, with ships occasionally phasing out of view only to reappear moments later. Finally, a blue-green planet came into view. It was a beautiful sight, reminiscent of Earth but with 2 moons hanging in its sky. As the fleet entered the atmosphere, the humans and their alien allies worked feverishly to keep the ship stable. The landing was rough, with ships touching down in oceans, on plains, and even in the midst of dense forests. But as the dust settled and the dimensional fluctuations stabilized, a cheer went up throughout the fleet. They had made it. In the days that followed, the true scope of humanity's triumph began to unfold. The planet, which they named Haven, became a melting pot of cultures and species unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Humans worked alongside aliens of all shapes and sizes, repairing ships, setting up colonies, and learning from each other. Dr. Rodriguez found herself running a medical center that catered to hundreds of different species, each with their own unique biology. Her adaptability and willingness to learn made her a respected figure among all the aliens. Raj Patel's engineering skills made him a legend among the fleet. He moved from ship to ship, teaching and learning in equal measure, bridging the gap between human ingenuity and alien technology. Dr. Chen became the unofficial diplomat of the new colony, her linguistic skills and empathy allowing her to mediate disputes and foster understanding between vastly different cultures. And Captain Harper, much to his own surprise, found himself being looked to as a leader not just by the humans, but by the aliens as well. His steady hand and decisive action had saved them all, and they trusted him to guide them into this new future. One evening, as the twin moons of Haven rose in the sky, the human team stood on a hilltop overlooking the bustling alien city that had sprung up in a matter of weeks. The Guardian joined them, its form shimmering in the moonlight. "When we set out to find our successors," the Guardian said, its voice filled with wonder, "we never imagined it would lead to this. You humans have not only saved us but have brought together species that have been separate for millennia. You've created something unique." Captain Harper smiled, looking out over the city where humans and aliens worked side by side. "We've always been good at adapting, at bringing people together. I guess now we're just doing it on a galactic scale." Dr. Chen nodded, her eyes bright with excitement. "This is just the beginning. Think of all we can learn from each other, all we can accomplish together." Raj grinned, already thinking of the technological advancements they could make. "We're going to revolutionize space travel, medicine, energy production. The possibilities are endless." Dr. Rodriguez laughed, shaking her head in amazement. "A few weeks ago, we were just a small team sent to investigate a distress signal. Now look at us, the caretakers of a galactic melting pot." As they stood there, watching the sun set on their new home, each of them felt the weight of the responsibility they had taken on. But more than that, they felt the thrill of the adventure that lay ahead. Humanity had been called to save a stranded alien fleet, but in doing so, they had found their place among the stars. The Guardian's voice was soft as it spoke one last time. "The galaxy will never be the same, and it is all thanks to the human touch." As night fell on Haven, the city below them glowed with the light of 1,000 different species working together. It was a testament to humanity's triumph, a beacon of hope shining out into the cosmos, promising a future brighter than any of them could have imagined.